Okay, so we're going to start our next session this afternoon. And this is the very exciting session because these are the presentations of the faculty who have participated in the workshops. We will have 5 faculty in 4 presentations, given 4 presentations. And we're going to start off with Shawn Farrington from Purdue University. So if you'd like to come up. And the way that this panel is going to work is we've asked our professors to answer a series of questions through the slide presentation. Basically, what does it look like before and after? Their experiences of what they did before and after participating in the workshops. How did you implement it in your class? So their experience. What specific student behavior made you think this student thinks critically? Lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, so practical lessons. And then an optional question for them if they used AI, if they want to include that in their presentation. So this is Shawn Farrington. He is a senior lecturer at the Polytechnic Institute from Purdue University who participated in our workshops. I'm
wearing the same jacket.
Oh, well, you did that on purpose so people would be easy to recognize. And so I'm going to pass this on to him. He'll talk. It's the green button to advance, yeah?
Green button.
Yeah. And everyone has 15 minutes except for our double. You guys will get 20, 25 minutes, yeah? Okay.
Oh, wow, awesome.
If I wave my hands at you, that means time is up.
Time is up.
Time is almost up.
Time is almost up.
Yeah, 5 minutes and then, yeah.
I'm getting conflicting information. So I'm just going to talk until somebody tells me to stop talking. Anyway, hi everybody, my name is Shawn Farrington. I'm here on behalf of the Purdue Polytechnic Institute, which is one of the 11 colleges at Purdue University. And when I was first approached about this critical thinking initiative, I was thinking, who do these people think they are teaching us about critical thinking? We do critical thinking all the time. We have 30 plus majors in the Polytechnic, all in applied and engineering technology. But I think I was accepting of this probably because, like what Doris was saying earlier, I wasn't a PhD yet. So she was talking to mostly PhDs except for me. But hopefully that changes in about 4 weeks' time. So we do critical thinking already, but like Marco was saying, we're not very self-critical. And we had to be very self-critical. And the big thing was we weren't very intentional or explicit about it. And so in my work that I do as a course coordinator, I'm in charge of our core curriculum for the Polytechnic Institute, mainly our course in human-centered design, or design thinking as it's also known. The Purdue Polytechnic Institute has about 5,500 students, undergrads, and again in 30 different majors at least, and everybody in there takes my course. And I also coordinate 8 other instructors who also teach it. So we see about 1,500 students a year, and we rolled out our critical thinking module in the fall of last year, and then repeated it again here in this spring semester that just concluded. And so we very much value critical thinking, and so it was natural for us to have a relationship with CAE. And we wanted to make sure that we were being very intentional, explicit, and serious about what it is that we were doing, but to show that we really valued what we were talking about. But we needed to make sure that it wasn't just a standalone module. It needed to exist and be embedded throughout the entire curriculum, which was actually really easy for me to do because in human-centered design, critical thinking is everywhere. Okay, in every step of the way we do. So our module really needed to be integrated seamlessly into the project. While I liked some of the modules that they had in the monorail example and so forth, it looked very different than what the nature of the course was. And so I decided to design my own with the framework from CAE and overlay that onto our design process. And so I can talk through that a little bit more, perhaps a little bit later. But I needed to make sure that it wasn't drastically different than what the course already kind of looked like. And so what I essentially did was take out a project that we had that happened outside of class between partners, and brought it all in class and developed a 3-day module where they work through the design process, but also engage in the 6-step, 7-step framework proposed by CAE. And so it had to be not major specific because all majors take my class. It needed to be very intentional and designed for 30 plus majors. And so how do I create a critical thinking module for all of these students? And the short answer is you don't. You choose something that's a lot more relevant to student lives. And so that's when I created Sam Reynolds. And Sam Reynolds is a fictitious student who is struggling in her first year of college with time management. Sounds familiar, perhaps, to maybe what we experience as educators all the time. And so, thank God I'm also a PhD student in learning design and instructional design, so this was a really fun challenge for me. I was supported by my assistant dean, more or less in spirit, but this is my creation pretty much. And so Sam, she's a struggling student in her first year, and this is caused by digital distractions, mainly phone usage, social media addiction, that sort of thing. And so I created this persona around Sam in that she's failing classes, she's struggling socially, she's not talking to her family or her friends, she's short in her attention span, and she gets angry with her friends when people point things out. And this is all based on a real life student that I had who, during the COVID time, really disassociated with my class and with college because she wasn't connected to anybody. And so I come to find out that she had an enormous amount of smartphone usage, cell phone usage, and to the tune of like, between all of her devices, 24 hours in a 24-hour span of time. Like, it was just an enormous amount. And so I thought that was very relevant to some of the things that my students exhibit all the time. And so before we embedded this, we were already doing critical thinking, but we decided to kind of switch things up, and now we have a 3-day module where we engage in the design process through empathy, problem definition, brainstorming, prototyping, and testing. And so we overlay all of the aspects of the framework here with the document library, identifying core issues, exploring solutions, developing an action plan, and presenting this information to Sam in a very empathic sort of way. And so we have a combination of before class individual assignments that students have to wrestle with information and do things on their own, and then they bring it to class and navigate all of the tricky situations with their group members, and then go out and engage in themselves individually and come back, and we kind of go back and forth like that through the entire design process. And so I've sort of deviated a little bit from what my slides say, but after we've embedded this, and I'll elaborate on this a little bit more, the engagement in the document library was more than I expected it to be, because I start this on the second day of class. And mind you, some of these students have never taken a class at Purdue University. I am their first instructor, and I say, oh, by the way, there are 10 documents, please read these for Wednesday. And this was Monday. And so I thought, nobody's gonna read these things, and I was wrong, thankfully. Anyway, so the analysis of qualitative data, lots of documents, whether it's fictitious schedules or social media posts or peer-reviewed journal articles. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, and I'll acknowledge that how do I know this is actually working? It's the discussions. Largely speaking, it's the discussions. And so when we're going through and actually implementing this, the document library, like I said, has 10 different documents in it, and at first I thought that was a lot, but I think it's perfect because not all of them are large written documents like journal articles and things like that. So it's comprehensible, it's approachable. But when they engage in these, we have created templates for them to make sure that they're looking through all the documents. What are they saying? What are they not saying? When was it published? Does it have a publication date? Does it have an author? Who is this author? Can we trust this author? How do we know we can trust this author? And where are these data coming from, right? Just being very analytical about everything that they are looking through. And it's wonderful that when I say go and do this, they actually go and do it. And so some of the materials that I also created were interview transcripts, so kind of fictitious interview transcript between Sam and a friend of hers, social media posts, what I'll show later, her schedule, some data related to phone usage and GPA and, you know, that sort of thing, just to sort of create and show how many different sort of causal effects that are sort of embedded within this problem, to kind of distract them away from what's really going on. And there are some students who will say, like, well, it's obvious that she's addicted to her phone. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Right? Others will tell me, oh no, it's this other thing. She clearly is just struggling with her grades, and I could see in her course transcript or her grade book that she's failing her class. It's like, well, why is she failing her class? Well, I mean, I wasn't doing so well in a class before, and this is why. Oh, so you're projecting, right? You're assuming because you've done it that she is also doing it, right? So look at the evidence and look and check your assumptions. Those are the two biggest things that I've had to talk about since doing this, thank you, about understanding your own assumptions and not projecting your own biases onto problems. There we go. So as far as behaviors go, the document library, like 100%, is like how I know this is working. Right? It's students agonizing over what does this actually mean, right? And I will sit down and I'll just listen. And the first time I ran this, I just sat in class and I'm just listening to what they're saying, and I was just in awe because I've never heard this before. I've never heard this from my students before, and I've taught this class 75 times before doing this, and I've never heard this kind of conversation before. And so when I hear students saying, I'm wondering if this means X, or like, this says this, but I don't know because this other data contradicts it. And I'm just like sitting there like smiling, and they're wondering why I'm smiling. Oh, sorry, go on, right? Go on, I don't want to interrupt you, right? And so the wonderful thing about this is that it's very ethnographically aligned, right? So when we do empathy work in human-centered design, we go out and conduct interviews with people. We observe them, we do participant observations, we do secondary research as well. So all of these documents align with the kinds of information these students need to go and do in design thinking so that they can empathically understand the people that they're designing for, right? And so it's a very nice scaffold into our subsequent projects, albeit in a very structured way, which I was not too keen on early on because everything that we do is all open-ended. You decide, you develop the interview questions, you go talk to the people, you find them, you gather all the data, you analyze all the data, you do all of this stuff. This is a little bit more closed-ended because we offer them a couple of different solutions as options. They have to choose based on what they think as a group is ultimately the problem, and then they also have to prototype it. So what does the action plan look like? What do we need to do for Sam if it's correcting her time management or getting help academically? What does that look like, right? And those other solutions are distractors for what's actually going on, okay? Well, she needs help managing her time. Why do you think that? Well, it's just her calendar's busy. Well, she's got a calendar. She's clearly managing things. What makes you think she's struggling, though, right? And so, it's just messy. So I'm still seeing some of the same, if you look into literature related to novice designers, I'm still seeing the same sort of things related to surface level understanding, that sort of thing. But the engagement in the data is really what's kind of overcoming that. And then the justification of saying, hey, Sam, this fictitious person, I think your problem is X. Here's what we're going to do with it because I know this, and this about you. And this is how I know this will work. What do you think, right? And so when they finally present their information to the class in like a really short 3-minute presentation, they're delivering it to Sam. And all the students in the room are then Sam. And now, as Sam, I have to decide, do I agree with this problem or not? And then I have to offer my critiques as well. And so as far as lessons go, when I first thought about doing this sort of thing, I thought, okay, this is a lot. How do I do it? AI helped, and I'll show you that in a second. But you really need to understand the materials that you've created, because students, I don't know how many you'll have, they always think about things way differently than you can anticipate, right? And so that is something that you really need to pay attention to. And also really trying to provide a debriefing opportunity. And that's not in here right now, but I thought about that later. Is I don't do that very well, and that's something that I need to embed a little bit more. Like, how do I debrief this a little bit more strongly so then I can connect that to later in my class? But also trying to balance your feedback without giving away the answer. Right? Because like I know what the answer is, but how do I address that by not giving too much information? And so right now, my students are not asked to explicitly use AI in this, and that's really kind of for selfish reasons. One is, well, mainly the reason is my dissertation is in human AI collaboration, and I was kind of waiting to see what the results of that were before I started embedding that, and I'll be defending that in 4 weeks. But I used AI, though, to help me create all of these things, right? Based on real data. So I have an email chain between Sam and her parents. I have a grade book showing there are some assignments she does well in and others that she doesn't. I have a social media post, that's Sam, by the way, right? At 3 o'clock in the morning, talking about how her work is being fueled by caffeine and regret. Right? So talking about the behavioral aspects of things. And then some college student data about cell phone use and things like that. So all of these things are meant to kind of come together and show there are lots of contributing factors to this problem. However, the evidence, not overwhelmingly, but subtly, in the majority, slight majority, point to the fact that she's addicted to her phone. And so some students pick up on that because they realize it. Other students don't pick up on that because they also haven't recognized that they're addicted to their phone as well, and will actively argue with me about, well, this is appropriate and this is not appropriate. So I think it's a little on the nose, the problem, but I think that's okay. It should be on the nose, because if you're going to do things in relation to critical thinking in your course, I think it should be very intentional, and I think it should be very serious, because as the data all say, our students need to know this, right? So no problem in my mind was as relatable and as explicit as this one for my course, and then also related to human-centered design. So I think that's all I have. Thank you. I think I went over, but...
All right. Thank you so much, Shawn. So next we have our faculty colleagues from Tech who both participated in both sets of CADIs. Yeah. So we have Krisztina as well as Luis Fernandez, and you have 25 minutes for the two of you to present together. And I'll give you a 2-minute. This button.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to give, a follow-up on the CADIs which we have taken, and it was a very great opportunity. Let me just, here is our presentation. So it's fun, actually, for us, after seeing, again, the theory and how high-level planning takes place in education, in terms of using AI and what the experience is and how we can manage it. Well, here we are, the two of us from the same campus, who are going to tell you how we have experienced, how we have designed activities around it to test it, to see what's the classroom experience. So we are from the micro, from the frog's perspective. And I'm going to pass the word to my colleague, Luis Fernando, and we are going to start.
Thank you so much, Krisztina. First, we want to explain that we use a specific methodology that is related to critical thinking. And we first thought about the 7 critical steps for integrating this idea. So during the CADI, we learned that we have to know about, for example, organize the information, to define the key issue, analyze the information, to construct the argument, critique the argument, to communicate the conclusions, and engage in a self-reflection. That was something that was really important for us because most of the time we realized that students at Tech were just choosing a path and they tried to justify it, but not like criticizing what they are doing. And also during the CADI, we learned that we can have this model development framework that is compound of three different, the structure is a compound of three important sections. For example, the first one is the topic, the second one is the scenario, and the third one is the options. So when we implemented this idea, we were trying to make students understand that maybe they can think critically if they understand that there are options, different options that they can take into account. If we can pass to the next slide. Thank you. And we have this chronology in order to make you aware how we implemented it at Campus Querétaro. And something that is really important for us is this course that we took at Mixcoac during August from the 4th to the 6th of 2025. After that, in one of the cases, we work with the students from this course called Applied Legal Research that was taken from August to October. In late September, before taking the CLA Plus exam, we applied first sessions to the students in order to make them aware about this methodology. Our students took on October the 1st, 2025, this CLA Plus exam, that is this colleague learning assessment that was taken in Querétaro. And I'm gonna pass to my colleague.
Yes, so I took the same course with Luis Fernando, and after that I designed an activity to specifically see how we can foment critical thinking while using AI. That was the idea, because previously I have done other experiences with AI, but it wasn't designed to test how you work with AI. And here it was specifically applying the methodology. And since I teach scenario planning, so it worked perfectly well for me. And so I designed an activity which I applied in 2 groups in November 2025. One group was an advanced social science group in which scenario planning was already a curricular material. And the other one was another course, a more generic course, what we call general education on geopolitics. So those students were from all over the different careers and from different generations. So it was a much more heterogeneous group. And so it served as a good comparison to see how the 2 different compositions of groups react to this activity. And based on that, I collected data, so I designed the activity. I designed a pre-test, a pre-activity test, and then a post-activity, well, it's not really a test, it's a survey, Google Forms, in which I try to get the feedback from the students, how they felt previously about AI and about their reasoning capacity. And after the activity, I collected again data. And so I have data for both groups, so I could check the difference within the group and among the 2 groups. And this led to a publication which then I sent to a conference, and I presented it last month in Valencia, the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia. And since then, I applied it 2 more times, and I have those data. I haven't processed it yet, but I have been iterating and already, because as things are, we are already learning more, and there is now, I have more ideas how to develop this. But anyways, this is where we are, and we are happy to share this experience. Go ahead.
Just in order to be clear to you, we divided these ideas or how we implemented critical thinking into learning experiences that are divided. The first one is related to the CLA Plus exam that the students at Querétaro took on October, and the second one is related to what Krisztina implemented in some specific courses related to AI. Something that it's important to say is that at least at Tec de Monterrey is a requirement for students to graduate to take the CLA Plus exam. So we have data from students from all the social sciences and government school, and 329 students took the exam last semester. And 22 of them were from Querétaro campus, which is something that is really important. 16 of them were women and 6 of them were men. And something that is really important also to mention is that 13 students from out of these 22 were studying a bachelor's degree in law, which is something that is really important. And here at Tec de Monterrey, we have this opportunity of have this double degree. No? So they were studying, some of them, the undergraduate program in law, and some of them were studying also international relations. So this is something that was applied in the Applied Legal Research course that is from the last semester of every student. We were really happy at Querétaro because we achieved some very important results. For example, as Doris mentioned before, there are mastery levels that are measured during the CLA Plus exam. From these 5 levels we have, at least we got 1 from advanced level. And we got 6 from proficient level, 6 from competent, 7 with developing, and 2 with emerging mastery level. But something that we found according to the data we have is that at least 2 students from the Querétaro campus were at the top 10 students, which is really remarkable for us. Even the second best student was from Querétaro campus, which I was really happy about it. And also, at the top 50, we had 5 more students. So when I was like thinking about trying to make them aware the importance not just of critical thinking, but also that they were gonna be measured and that we had results, I think they got more engaged about the exam, and they took it like in a more serious way. And at top 100, we have 2 more students, and at top 150, we have 3 more students. So what I learned from this experience by implementing critical thinking methodology was that we can change the mindset of students by not just explaining them in a learning experience how this critical thinking model function, but also if they know that they are going to be measured, they are going to have more, or they are going to have this this motivation, no, for performing better in an exam. So it was something that was also really curious, because here at Tec de Monterrey we have different campuses, and Monterrey performed pretty well in this CLA Plus exam.
Okay, so what I did, I mostly explained in nutshell. So I had 2 groups. One was an advanced group, which was having a class called Global Public Goods. And there I had 15 students. Actually, I had more. But since I needed pre-test and post-test, first of all, not all students showed up in class. Second, I had to pair. So I needed the response from the beginning of the class and the end of the class, and sometimes arrived people late or they left early or something. So that's why I have the sample not very big, even though the group was larger in both cases. The second group, which I said is a more heterogeneous group, there I have 18 paired answers, students from all careers and all semesters. And here the topic which I picked, I on purpose picked a topic that I knew they would not have a lot of previous knowledge of, which was space exploration and the governance of space exploration. And for that, what I did was that I provided them with some information printed out about the major international treaties regarding space activity, which countries have which kind of position on advancement. And I led them that you might investigate without the use of AI. So I instructed them very clearly on 2 things. First of all, on the process of how we can question, on the 7 steps that Fernando mentioned on critical thinking, how we can do better. And the second was how that they should not use AI at the onset. So that we are going to do two sets of experiments. One is that I'm going to ask them to create 4 scenarios, or well, actually it was 3 scenarios, best, worst, and most likely, regarding space exploration, and without the use of AI. And I gave them just the printout information. And after that, they have written down in that template that we projected and which was provided to us by Doris, they were asked to do the same now with the use of AI. They could even feed the paper, the template, they could feed the information, and then they got the second response. And after that, what happened was that I asked them to compare, look at it, and question that this result, what you developed, how is it different from what AI provided you with? And see the information, see the quality, see the biases, see the origin of the information, see where it is provided. And it was very interesting because they right away, so I have results on that, and I'm going to, that was the process. So independent reasoning was the first step, scenario creation, then AI, and then the comparison, and the critical reflection, and the classroom debate. So that was the process what we did in classroom. And the result was very interesting because there are on 6 dimensions of critical thinking, which I picked: bias identification, evidence recognition, multiple perspectives, facts versus opinions, if they can pick which is which, debate with confidence, or how do you construct your arguments, and the logical arguments. So these were the 6 dimensions that were asked in a Likert scale, on a Likert scale, both before the classroom activity and at the end of the classroom activity. And in each case, in both groups, there was a significant, statistically significant improvement in terms of their own judgment, how they were reflecting, and how they could identify, well, all those elements which I just mentioned. What was also interesting, so we can see from a mean of 7.5 or 8 in the other group, interestingly, the group which was less prepared, less versed in critical thinking and social sciences, they evaluated themselves better. And that's, I guess, a little bit of a human bias. And their assessment later on was, they scored also higher. But I found that the social science students were very critical, they were very highly engaged and deeply involved, whereas the other students were a bit less so, and there was greater dispersion, greater difference. Some students were really happy and really interested, and some not so engaged. So that there was that. Yes, and the qualitative results were also fascinating to me because the students themselves narrated what they found. First of all, they could identify what kind of reasoning AI gave them, and they were very critical on, that was the questioning part, and that I think is always very important. The second was the biases. They right away detected the biases of the Western framing. I might add that since then I've been even asking, so what AI are you using? Which one? Why? And now I have other experiments in which they use, they just use whatever they wanted to. I asked them to put down which one they used, but since then we even I've done experiments in which I asked them use a Western one and many students use DeepSeek. So use a Chinese one and see what the differences are. And even that is yet another additional fact, because now they identify even geopolitical biases. So that's even more fascinating. But here they already identified several of the biases, the data. Of course, they recognize that AI gives them more factual information, which they didn't have knowledge before. And they all noticed that their own scenarios were much more creative. So they like the fact that human knowledge, well, without human creativity, we would be kind of lost. So what is at AI, it's a much more limited, much more mainstream scenario what they were getting. And I thought that was very interesting. And also they realized that, well, they have to use AI more, iterate and ask more data. Why is it like that? Why would that happen? Why would be the global confrontation, etc.? So that was really fascinating, the comments what they gave, the qualitative part of the responses. And here are some of our pictures. The first one, which Luis Fernando did with the 8th semester students. And the other one is the two groups which I mentioned. And there they are, the students without any, in the picture in the middle, not using any of the digital devices. That's when they were drawing and discussing the scenarios. And I think they liked that engagement a great deal. And if you want to go ahead.
We want to state some conclusions related to what we have mentioned. And the first one is that curriculum integration is guidance. I mean, at least in my case, I remember that when I first assigned this case study that Doris prepared with CAE, the students started to think, but what they thought it was the best way just to give a solution, and it was difficult to them to understand that there was not a correct solution for the case, and that's why they started to understand that there are different sources, the type of sources, how they can use it in order to argument specifically, and it's something that we are really aware and something that we want you to share. The CLA Plus results show a competitive performance, no, in comparison with the other students. At the end, not all campuses were to the CADIs. That's something that is true, and not all the professors implemented it in their courses, and that's why it was really valuable. When I saw Doris and Marco on January, I was really surprised about the results, but it was related to this guidance we had, for example. And in the case of Krisztina, she's going to explain how the conclusions she found are according to the things she implemented.
Well, for me, the biggest finding was that I think deliberate instruction on how you use AI and make them reflect really like evidence. This is what you get if you just use your head, and this is what you get if you outsource all of it. I think them seeing it and commenting on it, that was the biggest learning, and finding that, yes, classroom instruction on how to use AI and following the critical thinking methodology actually works. It works for them, and that's good. It was also nice when I saw students being happy about their own scenarios more than what they got from AI. That human creativity still prevails, and they became much more extreme, and like AI typically would not say that there could be like a global war or a global clash, even if it's in space, because that's like almost a no-go. I guess it's programmed like that. Most of them, at least what we have seen. And humans, on the other hand, we have the capacity, we must think that. Why? In order to prevent that. So I think they understand that we have to think oftentimes in extreme scenarios, which AI is limited and instructed not to do so. So I think there is that learning, and I found that very interesting. And we would like to thank you for your attention, and we are here to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
I think we're going to have Q&A at the end after the presentations, but thank you so much. And such interesting work. And it's nice to see the empirical results of some studies. Data is always good, yeah. Next, we have Dr. Rosa from Ibero. So she participated in in a workshop in February. Yes? Yes. That's right. This button moves forward.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'm going to complement what Lourdes said in the last conference. I am here just a classroom teacher. I'm going to give voice to my students, and I'm going to show you evidence of what we have been doing. And it was a pleasure to have Doris at our university last February. I studied education from my bachelor's, then master's, and then PhD. I always studied education. So I already knew that critical thinking is what we have to practice at universities. But the first question is, what happened when I took this course? And what made me think is that I had to involve my students in this hidden curriculum, no? Because I had already knew that I wanted them to be thinking critically, but I didn't share it with my students. And now, after having this course, I thought, what if I tell them that this is my objective, no? If I have them like my colleagues, and work together. So that is what I made. And I came back to my classroom, and instead of just giving classes, I shared. My objective in this semester will be to make you think critically. And I gave them the 7 steps, and we worked together. And the results were evident. I liked them very much because they knew where we were heading together. So I'm going to show you some evidence of this, of how I made them work to achieve a goal that is not memorizing or learning something, but to learn how to go out to the world and interpret it. And well, before, in the morning, we were asking, what is critical thinking? And for me, it's like having your own personal idea of what the world is. Because everything is objective, but when you get into a position as a student, as a son or daughter, or as a professional, then you are going to make a difference in this world. Because the objective things are there for everybody just the same. But when you have a word, a voice, a style to give, then you can make a difference, okay? So, okay. I am an academic writing teacher, and just as the previous speaker said, I give this class to everybody. I have worked with all the majors because this is a basic class for everybody, academic writing. They are supposed to have these 4 skills so that they can grow as students in the university. Well, this line, I had another slide, but what I tell them at the beginning is that we are going to learn how to understand, speak, read, and write. But before doing this, you have to think. If you start speaking without thinking, nothing is going to go well, no? So I have decided, and we have been thinking how to transform this academic writing into critical thinking class. Because when you think, you can elaborate better. Language is just a symbol of what you are thinking, what you have in your mind, right? So I am going to show you at the end some of the results of thinking and working academic writing as a critical thinking class. Not just me, but together with my students. Okay. This is, for example, what we do. I have to teach them different genres of writing, and the first one that I work with is the review. And this is what I was telling you. First, the objective section. If you do not know about something, you cannot have an opinion, because we all have opinions about everything, about engineering, about art, about anthropology, politics, even if we do not know anything about it, no? But then I tell them, first, in the steps, you have to know about what you are going to give an opinion about. And then, this is the part that I am telling you. If you are going to give something to the world, something new, something personal and unique, because every one of us is different, and that is what we have to give to the others. So we work a lot in the subjective section. For example, a movie review. We are going to watch a movie, but everybody is going to see it differently, with different eyes. And then, what are the virtues and defects that you see in this movie? What are the significant aspects because of you, because of your experience and your background, and what you are looking forward to? So you work in the significant aspects and you share it with us. And then the intertextuality, how you are going to mix things, because nothing is isolated from the other things. When you analyze and think critically, you have to intermingle and mix what you live, what you think, what you study, what you are listening to. And do not believe or do not follow the others. Do not follow what the influencers say. Do not follow just because all of your friends are going to do this, you are going to do it as well. Just because your family believe in these things, in these principles, are you going to follow them just because of tradition? That's not the way of being critical. So that's what is behind these activities. Yes? And now I'm going to show you, the second question is, how do you implement it? Well, I'm going to show you the results of a review. This is of a song of Molotov. I don't know if you know Frijolero. It talks about migration. And this is what this girl wrote about. No? The song Frijolero by Molotov is one of the best examples of how this Mexican rock band uses music to talk about social problems. Molotov became famous in the late 90s. Well, this is the objective part. She's describing the song, she's analyzing it, and she's saying, well, first when she listened to the music, it was not her kind of music. But then after she analyzed the lyrics, she took into account that it was important, that it was a political song, and that she had something to say about it. So let me go this way because, no, this is, I'm sorry. Personally, Frijolero makes me reflect on how unfair it is to be judged only by your nationality or background, and it reminds me of times when I have felt stereotyped. This personal connection is what makes the song even more meaningful to me. For anyone who wants to get to know Molotov better, I would recommend listening to other songs too. Purdue is one of the most famous tracks and talks about intolerance, while Here We Come is full of rebellion and energy. So she followed my instructions and she was able to feel something with that song. It's not just that everybody says that, or I think that, no. You have to analyze it and then get a position towards this song. And that's what we have been making with other texts. After doing the review, we have another larger work, written work, that is an essay. I tell them the difference between a monograph and an essay, and that is the critical thinking. What is your opinion about something? Whatever you want, whatever you please, what it is your interest. This boy decided to talk about this football team, but I tell them, you can talk about anything, but critically. You cannot just go and say, this is trivial, this is superficial. No, you have to make a real analysis and get into conclusions. So he went out and made interviews to know what the others thought about it. And then he analyzes and compares with his own point of view, or what he thought before doing the interviews and after. And, well, this is his conclusion. The New England Patriots' journey from a modest local team to a global sports powerhouse illustrates the deep relationship between athletics, business, and culture. Their history reveals how determination, strategy, and unity can transform an organization and inspire millions. Through the leadership of Robert Kraft, the strategic brilliance of Bill Belichick, and the unmatched talent of Tom Brady, the Patriots have built a dynasty that has left a permanent mark on sports history. So this is evidence. I think that you can reflect your thoughts through language. And these performances, this evidence makes me think that I have been doing well with them, and that sharing the compromise, the responsibility of of growing and thinking with them, and not it's just me, was very important. You were talking about motivation, and when you share the responsibility with them, I think that they get involved. When you treat them, and I'm going to show you now how I have been dealing with AI. In this class, AI is in the center, in the middle of everything, because now they don't want to write. They don't want to write because the AI, ChatGPT, does it in 2 seconds. They don't have to work if they don't want to. But what I do, it's reverse it. First, I tell them, well, do you want to use AI? Ask ChatGPT to write an essay, and then you are going to grade it. You are going to perform it and make it better, not the other way around. And they are threatened, and they go into the competence, they are motivated, and they do it very well. Now, you were also talking about how to, well, I'm going to come back there. How to teach them how to use correctly the AI. And I go back to the traditional times where there were no computers, when I studied high school, for example, and we have to learn how to make instructives. And I tell them, if you know how to make an instructive of how to go to IKEA and buy your chair and then do it with an instructive, then you are going to know how to make prompts. Because now that's the thing. If you work with the AI as the boss, and the AI is your co-pilot, and they say they are not going to do it by themselves. You are going to give the instructions correctly. Then you are dominating the AI and not the other way around, right? So that's what I work with them, writing instructives about whatever they want. For example, they have made instructions about how to make a picnic, or how to get a boyfriend, or whatever, no? And this is, for example, it says how to get stronger and healthier with a simple walking routine. It is very easy. Everybody knows how to do it. But if you analyze how to do it step by step and giving all the instructions, and how do I grade it? I follow the instructions. And if something is missing, I will not get where you want me to go, no? So this is the way that we construct and build prompts for the AI. From traditional things, writing with pencil and things that maybe they seem old-fashioned, but, well, that's me. I cannot go out of this because that's my personality, that's my age, but I'm dealing with it from my point of view and getting close to them that are 20 years old. But they really get the idea. Okay, I have to learn how to write prompts so I can manage the AI and not the other way around. Conclusion, this simple 10-step walking plan helps you get stronger and feel great. Be preparing well, mixing up your pace and keeping track. You'll build endurance and enjoy walking. Keep going, make it fun. Okay? And before I show you some of the conclusions, we have just finished the semester, so I asked them to give me a testimony of what they have learned with me in this course. But I'm going to show you what we made at the workshop with Doris. Well, this is the framework. Well, the essential question or dilemma was, should the government give another president what he asks, even if it means to diminish her country's autonomy? Well, we will read news every day, and you know that we are talking about the dear President Trump that interferes with all of the countries around the world, and specifically with the Mexican government. And then we have been reading Trump throughout all the semester, and this is what we made, like the final test. It was a debate, and some of them they were obligated to say, yes, they are going to, well, he cannot interfere because we are free. And the other one said, no, it's better to have peace than other things. So the debate was really nice. I think that we have developed it better now, having this shared with my students than before. And just to finish, I'm going to show you some videos after having this class with them. How can you know if someone is skillful in using critical thinking?
Well, I think, first of all, you need to pick a topic that it requires reasoning and not memorization, because if it's just memorization, they will just tell you a speech and that's it. Then ask them what they're thinking, not just the facts, but what they're thinking. And when they're doing that, you need to evaluate the following aspects. For example, the clarity of the reasoning, make sure that they know what they're talking about and what they mean. They're just not like telling you something from ChatGPT. Then make sure that they are aware of their assumptions, that they know what they're talking about, the way they use the evidence, that they are making it with examples or something, that they consider some alternatives, and that would be.
How do you think that we can increase our critical thinking skills?
I think critical thinking, it goes all around like really taking your time and thinking what you're being told, what you're being asked, or what you want to say. So I think there's like 4 very important things you could do in order to improve it. Like question everything, like why is this true, is it, what evidence supports it, etc. Or check if it's a fact, an opinion, or an assumption. Also compare different perspectives and break ideas into parts. Like what is the problem, what do I know, what am I missing? And I think those are very important things that you can do in order to improve your critical thinking.
Okay, just let me tell you that I'm very proud with what we together achieved. Thank you very much.
Okay, and last but not least, let's see. We have Mike Alexander from Texas A&M. So, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
Green button.
The official greeting at Texas A&M is the word howdy. I say howdy, you say it back. Are you with me? Howdy! No, it's louder than that. It's got to be louder than that. Howdy! Okay, we're going to start with an activity. Activity, it has 2 steps. Stand up and sit down. Okay? If the following sentence applies to you, I want you to stand up. How many of you influence the teaching of critical thinking at your school? You're primarily an influencer. Stand up. Stand up. If you influence, stand up. Okay, good. Now, sit down. How many of you teach critical thinking at your school? You do it. Stand up. Okay, sit down. How many of you are not, but you want to? You're looking for ways to do it. Okay, you and me. We're going to go do this presentation, just me and you. Okay, all right. And the last, I think it follows up on something Michael said earlier. How many of you actually got into teaching or administrative work because you wanted to be rich and famous? Okay, all right. Okay, so this morning Doris told you about some data that we gathered at A&M, Texas A&M University, where we had a baseline, and then we did implicit, and critical thinking got a little bit better, and then we did explicit, and critical thinking got a little bit better. I'm here to tell you about the explicit, what we did that resulted in scores that were better. And so this is about a specific classroom intervention. That's what this is about. It's about how we went from no intervention to implicit to explicit. So I'm going to start by telling you some things you already know. This is what critical thinking looked like, or what I saw instead of critical thinking before we started the interventions. Students rush to a verdict. They pick the first solution that comes to mind. They skip the problem definition. They don't even stop to think, what's the problem I'm solving? They just grab the first thing that comes to mind. And don't shake your head too much, because we do this in meetings. We do this in meetings as well, right? We do. They would then present only the upside of their choice. They would only tell you why their choice was the right choice. There would be no mention of risk or downside. They would completely ignore other options. And then all of the analysis was dressed up in some way as confidence, blustering maybe. And these are my thoughts about why. Why did they rush to a verdict? I think we're inadvertently teaching our students that their job is to have an answer, not to find an answer. We don't teach them that it's okay to sit in the unknowing, because we don't show them that very well. Popular culture, television, we only see the dramatic scene in the courtroom. We don't see all the work that goes into it. Somehow, our students believe that solutions feel like progress, not running a process to get to a solution, the solution. They often confuse advocacy with rigor. If they're louder or more determined about their answer, sound like meetings at your work. If you're loud and more determined about your answer, somehow that makes it more right. They fear that it weakens their case to talk about the downside or the alternative solutions. They only want to talk about the upside of their case. If they only talk about the upside of their case and not another option, it feels like they're giving ground if they talk about other possibilities and other options. And then we do a really good job of rewarding our students and our young professionals to sound right instead of being right. That's what I saw before, and honestly, I got a little frustrated that most of our faculty weren't willing to just go teach critical thinking. They would tell me how they were teaching critical thinking while teaching other things. And I got frustrated enough that I went and did this. So I don't teach critical thinking. I create a situation in which the students can do critical thinking, and that's what it looks like. And here's what I want you to see there. They're in teams, they're physically standing up, their work is on display for everyone else to see. And what you don't quite see there, if you see them looking down and reading, they're actually reading the student instructions to each other. So they're doing the teaching. I just built the process to do this. So I'm telling you today about that process that I built. And that's it. That's the whole process. Primarily, you'll see step 2 is the actual intervention. Step 1, about a week before class, and by the way, these classes are scheduled. They're in their schedule 6 months in advance. We don't teach it as part of a course, but it's on their schedule. They know it's required. They will show up. They all show up. So they come to the intervention and they come to the assessment, 2 different things. They come to both of those with a few exceptions without question. Essentially, if you're sick or if you have a job interview. So about a week in advance, we provide them the commuter rail case straight out of CAE, and we provide them the student materials, the instructions of how to think critically. And I ask them, know the student materials well enough to be able to do it in class, and I preview to them because you're physically going to do it. So I create a little incentive. And then I ask them to know the content of the case well enough to be able to use it. But the caution is, please don't come to a conclusion. And they have a very difficult time with that. Do not come to a conclusion. Partial shutdown, full shutdown, 3 months, 7 months. Come informed and ready to go through a process. The intervention in and of itself is about 2.5 hours long. And you saw pictures, and I'm going to show you more. They're primarily divided into teams, but the first thing we do when we get in the room, and Yanni talked about this earlier today, motivation. I try to help them find their own motivation by asking a simple question: why does this matter? Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to me? Why does it matter to the institution? And I let them talk about, why does it matter? Why does it matter to be able to think critically? I might get a better job. I might interview better. I might actually perform better on the job. I might become valuable to my boss. But why is it critical to me? Because you care about our learning. Because for some reason you think this is important. That gives me room to tell them how I see students and young employees who can follow a process. They have something different than everybody else who's just rushing to judgment. And then what we do, the meat of this thing is, they stand in the room with these instructions and the case. I break them up into teams, and step by step, one step at a time, they read the instructions to each other. It's that simple. Stand in a corner and read the instructions to each other on a team of people that you've been working with 2 or 3 months. You have 3 minutes, go. And then I give them 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes, 12 minutes to do the first step. So organize the information on those sticky notes that you saw. Just get the information organized. And I'm watching for those who start listing the problem or who start listing the information in a way that starts defending one of the solutions. So I'm watching for those things. And I have them do all 5 of the steps. They read it to each other. They do the step publicly where they can be seen. We pause for a minute after each step and we debrief. That's basically it. Tell each other, do the step on the big sticky notes, and then we do a big group debrief. What worked, what didn't work, what didn't you understand, what do you wish you had more time for? And then we move on to the second step, define the problem. I told you to leave some space at the top of your little sticky note. Write the problem up there. Now that you've got all this information, write the problem. Notice that we didn't do that first. So we go through the first 5 steps with discussion intermixed, and then we sit down. And then they write. Okay, you now have a recommendation, write it to me. They submit those individuals' memos to me, and there's a piece in there that I changed this last year, which we'll talk about in a second. That's the heart of the matter. They do critical thinking. Step 3 is me analyzing what they did and sending them individual feedback. Using AI, I analyze what'd you do really well, so I want you to get an email, and you to get an email, and you to get an email that says you did these 2 things really well. And you need to get a little bit better at these 2 things, and here's the page numbers in the student materials where you can go read about it. One of the gaps in my process is I don't have an incentive for them to read my email and go continue to learn, other than whatever their intrinsic motivation is that we uncovered in step 2. And then I back up a little bit further and I analyze the whole process with photos of the posters that they create and all the individual memos, and I really just ask myself, how can I make this better? And then the day that they take the assessment, I go back into the room and do a very brief review, encouraging them to continue doing the 2 or 3 things as a cohort that they did well, and giving them a couple of recommendations about things they didn't do. And it's typically still things like, yeah, but you didn't tell me the downside of your recommendation, or you didn't fully explore the upside of the other recommendation. So you picked full shutdown. Tell me what the upside of partial shutdown and why full shutdown is still better. I give them a couple of examples and then they take the assessment. That's it. Now there's some pictures of that step, of step 2. So in the classroom, they're working in teams and they're physically writing and they're displaying it for themselves and each other. I want them to do it and I want to see that they have the ability to do it. And there's a forcing function in here. Slow down. Slow down and do the steps. They're broken up into their teams. They know each other. They've been working together a while. And one of the most fun things we do is during critique and argument, I have several of the team members switch. So 2 of you stay here, 2 of you go over there. Whatever they say their recommendation is, the 2 of you poke holes in it. As if you're the senior partners in the firm where you're trying to help make this a better decision. And we spend 10 minutes, 12 minutes doing that. And so team members switch and they debate, they critique, they help each other build the argument so that they can see what critique and argument looks like. Because sometimes we have a hard time doing that for ourselves. So they do it with each other. And then last, we sit and write. I told you what it looks like before. They jump to a conclusion and defend it to the death, essentially. This is what critical thinking looks like after. That's the actual work product of one of the teams on April 10th. I don't expect you to consume all that, so I'm going to give you a little guide. They clearly defined the problem. They openly named the downside of their recommendation. They engaged the competing option. Their arguments hold up when challenged. They revealed all their thinking. They slowed down and participated in the process. There's where they defined the problem, because I asked them to do it. Now, you all know that that was a pretty good one. Do we repair with plan A or plan B? Some of them want to write out much longer, more complicated problems, so we're able to discuss that in the classroom. Should we do option A? Should we do option B? Should we do a combined option A and B? Should we consider a derivative of option B? What's the other choices that we haven't considered? And I just have to tell them, guys, when the boss tells you what the problem is, trust the boss. But shouldn't we push back? You can push back, but you better do it after you provide an answer. Slow down and follow the process. So here's where they did the other things. They openly named the downside. There's the disadvantages of their recommendation. They engage openly in other options because they have to list out all the information. They slow down and think about the other option that they're not going to recommend, but hopefully I'm trying to get them to do that before they even have a recommendation. And overall, I think the most important thing is that they slow down and they participate in a process that helps them live in the unknowing and appreciate it and maybe enjoy it and see value in it. The lessons that I've learned, first, the resistance that I see. Programs often have a difficult time finding time. And I respect the fact that our faculty have domain expertise that they're trying to communicate. They have content that they're trying to communicate. Frankly, I got frustrated and decided to do it myself. I'm not a faculty member, I'm a staff member. I can read a set of instructions, I can create something like this. I taught for a couple of years, it wasn't all that hard. Carve out some time, go in the room and do it, because the faculty just don't have time. When I would ask faculty to help me, they would often use their domain expertise and this process, and that was the implicit instruction. So they wouldn't take the student materials and teach this. They would essentially say, I'm requiring you to do these steps while you solve a strategy case. And that worked, but not quite good enough. It was the same thing we talked about earlier. Why not just take it out and do it? So we did. And then I found that passive exposure doesn't lead to skill development. What really helped was I took a risk and I went and did the intervention in a program that I managed. I had the decision rights. I just went and did it. But then we got the data. And what the data did was, because we have, institutionally, we have assessment groups, people who help each other. And so when the data entered that room and people saw that something was working, essentially out of jealousy, and sometimes jealousy of the ease at which we made a difference, they started saying, can I come watch? Can you come do it for my program? I don't want to be the only one who does this, so I encourage them to come watch me, and then for them to go do it in whatever way fits them, following some sort of the basics, physically standing up, moving around a room, doing in some way, not just talking about it. So other faculty and staff come and observe, and then they leave with an idea. An idea this literally could be done in a couple of hours of class time. Here's where AI enters the picture for me. I'm not actively engaging the students in the use of AI for critical thinking. I think that's beautiful and I want to get there. I'm using AI. I'm using AI to review the student work. So after they submit the recommendation memo to me, they email it to me. About 2 days later, I'll spend several hours using AI to send them individual feedback back. I want them to know specifically that I read it. I want them to know that I care. And I want them to know that I took the trouble to go find a page number to tell them where to go get better. And the reality is the bot helps me do that tremendously faster so that I can get it back to them. The other way I used AI was I stepped back from the whole process. I uploaded all the memos in that same string, and then I took pictures, which is why I have all the pictures. I took pictures of all their posters, and I started asking questions. What did I do well? What did I do relative to CAE's instructions? What did I not do well? Do you see any gaps? I did this twice in the spring, and after the first time, the chat that I was working in said that there appeared to be a gap between steps 1 and 5 and step 6. And as I probed into that, using the bot as a thinking partner, what I found was when we're working as a group, they were getting it. But then when they sat down individually to write, there was a leap there that we weren't making. So I had the bot design an activity that would help me. And that activity was me and the bot wrote a template of what a good memo might look like. and we sat in class when they sat back down after doing all the group work and they sat back down to write me the memo, we wrote a part of one together as a class so that we could emphasize, show the downside of what you're recommending, and here's how that might sound. Show the alternate option and the upside of that alternate option and why that upside doesn't win relative to the option that you're recommending. And I think what this all comes down to for me is that teaching critical thinking means making the invisible process visible. And for me, what it meant was finding a way for them to do critical thinking instead of just sit in a room and listen about it. Thank you. You want me to just go all the way to the end? Yep. Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
You bet.
Actually, I'm going to invite all our professors up to the front, and we can take questions from people. Great job. This is the most exciting part of actually the classroom, and when I said the practice, the theory was the morning, and the practice is now. So, yeah, it doesn't matter what order you can, however you'd like, and then we can have questions.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for sharing the experience that you have developed in your classrooms. The first question that I have, particularly listening to your presentation, the last presentation. Last year, we tried in the School of Government a practice that sincerely didn't work. I insisted with other colleagues that it was important that we have faculty visiting our classroom so they could tell us what we were not doing right, no? And precisely pushing our students for critical thinking. And my question is, how do you overcome apathy? Because, I mean, they asked for volunteers of who were the faculty that wanted to be visited by other faculty. So some of us volunteers said, okay, fine. I mean, I don't have any problem that someone goes to my classroom and after classroom gives me feedback of what I'm doing right or not. And it was very discouraging that basically very few participated and there was no feedback. No? And I'm sure that there is a lot of room for improvement. So that's the first part. The second part that I have for all of you, on the artificial intelligence way of using as a professor to provide feedback, I saw a case last semester that reminded me as a faculty also to be respectful on how to use artificial intelligence if I'm gonna use it for providing feedback to my students. I mean, students talk to each other, and there was a colleague that basically used artificial intelligence for grading his exams and gave back the feedback really without even reading through the feedback that artificial intelligence had provided. And obviously, that was very discouraging for the students that have worked very hard their policy memos and suddenly see that their professor didn't really have the time to use carefully the artificial intelligence. So in that sense, my question for all of you is, how do we use it to improve the way that we are providing feedback in such a way not to commit the mistake that this colleague did when he used artificial intelligence?
So your first question about apathy, I'll tell you how I do it. Those who are apathetic, I just slowly marginalize them. Let them do what they want to do. And I find those people who want to have fun and play. And that may be 2 or 3 faculty members out of 20. But then I'll go engage with those 2 or 3 on something like, I mean, Michael Pace and I know the names of the people who've helped me with this. If you want to play, come play with me. and the others, it's okay, because I don't believe we need to get them all. I think we need to get a critical few. So that's how I overcome apathy. I essentially ignore it or marginalize it and play with those who want to play. And then on the AI thing, first I tell the students that's what I'm going to do, and I tell them why. I tell them so that I can get it to them faster, and I tell them that it will be more comprehensive than me, but I also tell them that I will own the feedback, and I think that's the other critical thing. I read everything, and I keep it short. Good gravy, I have to keep it short, or they won't read it. So I read everything that's written, and it starts turning into a template after I do 40 or 50 of these, right? And that's okay with me, as long as the individual feedback is real relative to that student's performance, and the reality is 90% of them are the same memo, because they're making the same mistakes here. And so I think if I tell them that I'm doing it, I tell them why I'm doing it, I own it, and I think it actually matters that none of this am I doing for a grade. And so that risk that's in there, it's literally just feedback to get better, and I'm using a bot to help me do it, which sends a signal that I actually expect them to do it. So I actually tell them, after we do the intervention, if you want to get better at this, go put your response to me, the memo, into AI and use these materials and start playing. I'll encourage it, even though in the classroom what we're using is big whiteboards, so they can't use it. We're moving too fast for them to use it in the classroom. So I think in short, I tell them what I'm doing, and I try to be really honest with them about why I'm doing it. So I don't want it to be a secret.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Rosa.
We'll go later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think it's a matter of ethics, no? Because now that we are celebrating Teachers' Day, we have to talk about our vocation as teachers. Because if it's a matter of information, well, the AI, the internet is much better than we are, because they have much more information and data than we do. But the thing is that how are you going to be related with your student if they matter as persons or just as grades, as results? If you really think that they are here because they are someone, then you are going to work with them as a team. And whenever I use the AI, I work with them together, and we read the results together. And we talk about what we think about what the AI is saying. I think that it is a matter of taking care of your students.
I guess now, yes. I'm also upfront, so I tell them that I'm reading, of course, all their works. And I even separated. This is my comments, and this is what AI is additionally suggesting. So I'm very clear, and I think transparency always helps. And yeah, I think the baseline is just like with any AI, we need to be in a driving seat and just say so. And then I think it's well received. So that has been my experience. So I tell them up front as well what I'm doing. So that's it. And indeed, I agree that it makes shorter when we have to perform under pressure ourselves.
In my case, I like to bring like a phrase that I heard from a Colombian psychoanalyst that is called Javier Rolón. But our life, or us, is the result of the actions we take. And I say to the students that we need to understand how we are using AI in our classes and in the learning process in order to understand what we've been discussing here, but we are not replacing the process. We are trying to understand what kind of tools we have and how we use it. But in real life, they are gonna be exposed to different scenarios where sometimes AI is not enough for them to solve a problem. And I try also to explain to them the cases. I work with things related to human rights, for example. But in some regions, for example, you don't have internet or something like that, but you have to solve the case, or you have to help people in specific cases. And when I tell these kind of stories to my students, they started to say, oh, maybe AI is not for, I'm not gonna have available AI for all the time. And at the end also, they know that in some specific cases, at least at Tec de Monterrey, they're gonna be facing the challenge of solving problems or taking exams that in which they are not gonna be able to have that AI tool. So that's what I believe it's important to me, at least, to make them aware that using AI with no ethics has consequences in their lives. Yep.
That first question, I want to kind of build off of what Michael said. I wouldn't go so far as to say we shame, right? But we really kind of try to make it a grassroots movement in that my course is one of the first courses that all the students take. We also have a faculty member who teaches the capstone courses, so it's kind of the last course a lot of students take. And so we got a little, the bread of the sandwich, right? And so, and then we aim to have a few faculty members that are kind of the in-between as well, so that every step of the way there's a kind of a large exposure of that. And it's not very difficult for us to find faculty who are willing to play ball, because in our college we're doing critical thinking rather implicitly. We all are, right? And we can show you how easily it is to bring it to the forefront, and with very little work, right? Like, I probably put more work into it than was absolutely necessary, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. And that kind of gets me to the second part of your question there, with the use of AI. I used AI to create most of my documents because I'm not a graphic designer. Okay, and so I had a lot of fun learning how to make these different sorts of images and how I could use these to be more effective in delivering what the message was, or what the distraction could be, right? So that students can wrestle with whatever it is that they needed to wrestle with. And I'm very upfront with the students about, it's like, oh yeah, I used AI to help me create these documents, right? Because I'm not a graphic designer. Right, but they look so legitimate that I've only ever had one student ask me if this was AI generated, and that was last semester. And so, so I think it could be very helpful with that. And as a collaboration tool, that's where I'm really going to be going with it, right? So it's the next member in the team, essentially. Like we're gonna kind of put our thoughts together, and then we're going to bounce our ideas off of this AI system, whatever it is, right? To see, is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that we're not thinking of? And then, we can use it to question what our thoughts are, help us brainstorm why our idea is good or not good, or, is the detailed action plan or the prototype that they're creating actually addressing the problem, or is it just sort of, again, surface level, just saying, hey, you have a time management problem, so here's a calendar. Well, if you didn't pay attention, she already has one of those, right, in my module. And so, get them to pay attention to more things and recognize that there are different solutions out there. Because, to your point, I just had a student confide in me a couple weeks ago that one of her instructors was giving her feedback via AI, and it made her uncomfortable. And Michael, I think, made a really good point, saying, just be upfront with it. If you're upfront with it, then they're generally more accepting. I'm not going to say all of them are, but they're generally more accepting when you do that, because time saved, scale, things like that, right? We're not there yet, because I'm fortunate to be able to hire graduate students, create assignments, and get their funding for their education. And so a human is looking at everything. But there's no reason why we couldn't do that also.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes?
¿Me paro? Ah. Thank you very much for all your experience. I have been thinking since I was at the last CADI, and I talked briefly about it in that moment, that in social sciences we have to make like an effort to include critical thinking. And in my experience, because I taught 10 years at the National School of Forensic Science in UNAM, in contrast with teaching at law school, it's different, because there critical thinking is completely part of the normal thinking when it comes to forensic science. And when I teach law, I have to include it like intentionally. And last time at the CADI, I said that one of my weak points at teaching is the evaluation. I'm not really very good at it because I was formed as a researcher teaching at postgraduate school, not undergraduate. So I'm not very good at evaluation. So I'm always trying to be better and to form better instruments for evaluation. So I was very inspired by the last CADI, and I said, like, I have to do an exam that really catches up on critical thinking evaluation. And I did it just right now. I just finished my course. So I used a written exam, like paper, intentionally and not by fear. You said that, right? Not by fear, just because I wanted for them to write by hand. And it was just pure case-based critical thinking. And this is criminal procedural law. So there's a lot of things that you have to use to argument on critical thinking. It's just not law by, written law. And it was, for me, it was a great experience, but it took me ages to grade. On contrast with my other exams on last semesters, it was really more quickly to do. So for me, it was like a double experience. For once, I could actually know better my students, how they think about criminal procedural law, how they think about justice, how they solve problems in the justice and the criminal justice system. On the other hand, I was here with the you have to grade because you have to, and then Canvas got hacked, and it was like, oh my God, I have to read very quickly, and I have to give them notes, written notes. Now I'm writing, and telling them why this is not correct and why you should have done. And have you considered in your practice that actually including critical thinking, not only in the evaluation, but like in the complete course, it takes a lot of time and effort. And how do you manage that, and how can we learn from your experience? Because this time I thought, maybe I'm not going to be able to do this again next semester. I will try to, though.
Can I go first? Two things. One is, not everything has to be assessed, right? So, when I break it down into the process, we don't have to, assess every single step. We have a rubric, a template, so they do it, right? So they actually go do the assignment, right? And you got to tie it to some points because otherwise they won't do it, right? And so we have rubrics to assess those things, but where on a rubric, right, am I really able to get the essence of critical thinking as a personal development skill, right? And so the second part to that is have your students do it, right? As much as I possibly can, I situate the students as the ones who are critiquing everything, right? Because, I can critique it, and I think it's fine, and I don't mind doing that, but the students somehow love that. And they take advantage of it as much as possible. And so if you situate the student as, in my situation, when I say, we are all Sam, right? Sam, you need to know who Sam is in order to be able to evaluate that solution, whatever the case may be. The students jump all over that because now they have the opportunity to show what's good, what's not good, why I like it, why I don't like it, poke holes in it every step, every possible way they can. And it's not about judging them as a designer, like you chose the wrong solution. It's about choosing the solution that works for someone else, right? So it's not about you, it's about the other person we're designing for, right? So I have that luxury. So really it's like, try to break down your assessments into its most simple form, and maybe you don't have to assess everything, at length. And I went into it saying I need to do this because it needs to be, I need to be able to replicate it across all of my sections with all of my instructors that are all graduate students, because I have new ones every 2 years, and I got to be able to teach them kind of the same way, and they need to be able to do it without ever knowing how to do this in the first place. And with 1,500 students a year, right, there's no way we're grading huge papers, things like that, right? So it has to be intentionally simple in that way. so that I can replicate it every semester. So think about that, and then also think about where can your students do it.
Well, a very economic way of doing it is using a rubric. And you can do it very fast. You are not going to evaluate everything, but you are going to have like indicators what you are looking for in a text, and they are going to be more objective when they write it, and you are going to be very fast evaluating.
I guess for me it's always like no pain, no gain. So it's like if you go for it, that's what you're gonna get. So I know because I did again like developing surveys. It's a pain in the neck too because you give feedback and feedback why this question is not good and why it is biased, etc. It's a very tedious work, and I forgot because I didn't do it for a few years. But now I did again, and it's like, why am I doing this? But that's what they learn the most. And especially, so yes, I think it's very formative for them and for us too. But yeah, it's very time consuming. My shortcut is making extreme short oral exams. So I call them in, and you have 3 minutes, and you tell me why is this an elastic product and why is it not? And I can tell on one question that this person understood the term or not. And I think I just go and I just tell them right away. I even record it. And I tell them, this is a correct answer, 100. This is not correct. Why? Because this is the correct answer. So I think you need to practice that, and that's it. So this is your grade. And I do it in 3 minutes, and I can do in an hour and a half, I can do 30 students. Yeah, like almost 2 hours, like this. That's my shortcut, what I can do. Yeah, but that's it.
What I think is that the best scenario at every university is that every single professor applies critical thinking in courses. But something that I've seen at least at Tech is that we are really good at choosing maybe some specific subjects to apply those kind of methodology, and that could reduce our job because, as you know, we have many subjects to give during the semesters, and we are going to be so tired at the end of the semester. But as Krisztina says, I feel it too, no pain, no gain sometimes, and I at least in my case, I choose a specific course to do that kind of activities. For example, in my case, human rights. It's very important, and it takes me a lot of time because at least in my case, I have around 40 students, so I have to read all the exams, and it's very tiring. But it's rewarding when you see the results after that. But maybe we can, as a faculty, gather and try to choose some specific subjects, and we can implement it. And maybe we also, I don't know, that's something that I'm thinking, but we can also do something in order to reduce the number of credits we give or something like that. Because implementing this means a lot of time.
Thank you. I have a favor to ask of the audience who had questions. Can you write your questions down or just make note of the questions that you had? Because we actually have an extended question and answer session after this so that we can bring the next panel up. So I want to thank all our professors and faculty members and a great job in influencing the next and teaching the next generation of critical thinkers. So now I'm going to invite the next panel up. Thank you so much. You don't need this. You press the green button and to get to, just keep going.